Hello everyone, welcome aboard the SPSF Meadow Sub. Today we're going to go over a couple things. One of the things is that about rebadging cars for the SPSF Railway I get a lot of questions about. So I really wanted to go through that just to kind of show you the steps that I use for that. Because a lot of you ask, how can I get cars for the SPSF Railway, or how do you take lettering off of freight cars? So this kind of combines all of that. So I'd like to take some time to go through that with you. I also want to show you how I fix McKean centerbeam trucks. Like I said, I really like the McKean centerbeam flat cars, the short cars, because there's several varieties that they make that are not made by anybody else at this time, or not available in HO scales. So I really like those cars, but there's one little problem with the trucks, and it's pretty easy to fix. So I thought I'd show you that too. So let's dive into the freight car decals a little bit. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. I'll be checking my phone every now and then to see if you all have any questions as we go along. So just a word about the BNS or the SPSF freight cars. What I do is, or I should say, let me start by saying that when you have a fantasy railroad, railroad that doesn't exist, obviously one of the most important things is figuring out what your cars are going to look like. And for me, what I feel is really important is, one, to have something that looks realistic, so that people see your concept and they say, oh, that looks real. So as if it would really be something that's out there. And so that's one reason that I very closely follow the BNSF design. Obviously, other things that are important to me is picking something that's easy to do, so that I can mass produce quite a few amount of cars for op sessions and whatnot. Making the SPSF cars the way that I do is very easy. Most of my cars, there's no custom painting involved, so it's very easy to do. And so I'll show you that today. So just a couple words about that. So specific to my paint scheme, what I do, and let me grab a car real quick. This is a typical SPSF freight car. You can see it. And, boxcar red or mineral red, whatever you want to call this color, is the color. And basically what I do is I just follow what the what the BNSF does. So something interesting, after the SPSF merger was denied in real life, the Santa Fe went with a style very similar to this. And they started, using the mineral red, boxcar red like they had before, but a very simple design where they just had their reporting marks here. They had the logo here, and so that was basically it. Well, after the Santa Fe converted that with the BNSF merger, they basically used the Santa Fe freight car style. So the BNSF style that's out there today is essentially what would have been out there if the SPSF merger had gone through. So that's the number one reason why I followed the BNSF. Something else that's important to mention, the numbers series. Usually I'm very particular about number series, especially when it comes to locomotives. I want to follow what the SPSF had laid out there, what they were going to be. But with freight cars, I really don't care. There's so many freight cars out there. To me, it's really hard to narrow down the specific number series for each one. So what I do when I'm rebadging BNSF cars, I just leave their number the way it is, and then I just worry about the SPSF lettering and logo. So just wanted to mention that. So now we'll go through a couple things that we're going to do today, and I'm going to move the camera a little bit closer. So to show you what we got here. So on my workbench table, I've got a few projects that I want to work on. I'm trying to do this by moving the tripod. So as you can see here, I've got, this is a BLMA beer car that I want to rebadge for SPSF. And then I've got two Intermountain 50-foot box cars, one for me and one for a friend. And then I've got this Athian tank car that I want to use for diesel fuel for my fueling facility. So those are the things that I want to rebadge today. And so now I'll go through the materials that you need for that besides the freight cars. Just to kind of pause here for a minute, what I really like about this, the way I do this too, anybody can do this. And so you pick any BNSF freight car, and there's a ton out there, that you want to have SPSF, and you buy that, and it's really easy to convert. And I also want to mention that I've got a decal set available through Highball Graphics that is basically for doing this project, and I'll put the link below later so you can see it. But if you go to Highball Graphics, under their freelance decals, the SPSF there's a set for Rebadging BNSF freight cars, and it comes with different decals. So I want to mention that in case you want to try this out. So the other thing that we need is obviously decals. A few years ago, I created, with the help of a friend, I created a ton of these SPSF decals from Eyeball Graphics, and so that's what I'm going to use for these cars. The other thing that we'll need is some Q-tips for rubbing off the logos, and so we'll go into that more. So I'll just pause here and see that Michael Hellenick's joined. So thanks, Mike. It's good to see you. And then let's get into it. So let's just bring one of these cars over here and a Q-tip. So the method that I use, and I've mentioned this in videos before, is, let me see if I can, there we go, get a nice shot of this, my sink over here. The technique that I use, that's tried and true, tested many times over the years for me, is the Comet Cleaner method. And this is, my friend Matt taught me this several years, like a decade ago. So what I do is I use this Comet Cleaner, which is just a basic, you know, household Comet Cleaner. It's a little messy. And I just mix it with water. And so I've already mixed them up here. What I do is I just have this old jar with a lid, and I just keep this here all the time, so that way it's ready to go. And so this is what the mixture kind of looks like. You got your kind of foamy Comet, and then a lot of residue or stuff kind of builds up down here, which is fine. This is about what you want. And this is the basically the acting agent that gets the stuff off. So, all right, so now we basically have everything we need. We got our Comet Cleaner mixture, and we got our Q-tip, and then we got a freight car. So let me see if you can see this. Let me get a little bit closer to the sink here so y'all can see this. So the thing I love about Athearn cars, the newer cars, their stuff comes off really easily. So that's why I want to start with this and show you. So what I do is I just dip the Q-tip down in the Comet Cleaner mixture and get a nice goopy wad of Comet Cleaner like that. And then you just kind of rub it across the car. And what I usually do is kind of let it soak just a little bit. Now you have to be careful with this that you don't get other stuff off that you don't want to get off, like all this data stuff that I want to keep. And also if you're working with fragile cars, you have to be very careful. This has got a lot of pipes and stuff on it. So we're going to be careful with that. And just gently rub it off, and it should, especially being an Athearn car, it should just come right off. Now with other cars, and I'll show you the Intermountain example next, other cars will take a little bit longer. Yep. And the other thing you have to be careful of is sometimes if you rub too hard, and I'm really surprised this did this, but notice how the paint came off here. And so if you rub too hard, you get the paint off. It's usually not an issue, so I'm really surprised. But not a problem. We'll just paint it over black. And then the nice thing is the decals are going to go right over where these logos were. So you won't even notice when you put the decal on and give it a little bit of weathering. But like I said, I'm really surprised the paint came out because I was not rubbing off that hard at all. So of course, you know, once I say this is an easy car, then it's not. And I got the same issue going on here as well, so that's unfortunate. But like I said, most Athearn cars, the stuff just comes right off. Usually the paint is left right underneath. It's not an issue. This one's being a little stubborn. Yeah, it's really stubborn. Okay, well, that happens sometimes. Like I said, the good thing is with especially with the BNSF cars, you're just going to add an SPSF logo right over it. So it's not going to be an issue. And I'll be sure to post photos after I finish these so you can see what they look like. And I'm really surprised so much of this paint is coming off. This is completely unlike an Athearn model. Yeah, I've never seen this before. This bad anyways. Okay, well, we got the whole logo off. I'm just gonna, usually what I do, I'll just go through the rest of the car and keep doing this. So obviously do the other side and you got the ends, but I'll just kind of fast forward just in the so that we don't lose too much time. So then I just rinse this off. I'm not concerned about getting a car wet. One thing I should have mentioned beforehand, what I always do is I obviously take off the trucks and couplers so that this car is ready to spray. So then after this, say I'm done with the entire car, I'll let this dry, and when it's dry, you can put the gloss coat on. So I'll just put it on that towel over there. Now, one thing about using the Comet Cleaner, fingers get a little messy. Important to wash your hands. So now I'll go grab an intermountain car. We'll see what that looks like. Let's go with this intermountain car here. Okay, so this intermountain car, obviously with the BNSF, you've got either the old logo or the new BNSF swoosh logo. And either one is fine, because with the large SPSF, you're going to block out where that decal is, this old logo. So that's fine also. So we'll just go ahead and let's hope that this is a little better than the other car was. And a lot of times you can keep reusing the toothpick or Q-tip. Sometimes you have to go through a lot of Q-tips. Usually I can do about one Q-tip per car. This is kind of a good rule of thumb. I'm hoping this car behaves a little bit better so I can show you what it usually looks like, because if you're looking at that tank car, you're thinking, why would I want to do that? It just rubs the paint off. Well, as I said, that doesn't usually happen. I'm very surprised, especially with an Athier. And my experience is with every newer Athier and ready to roll, this lettering just rubs right off, and it's a piece of cake, which is why I like their cars for that. There, so this is a good example. I'll wash it off so you can see it better, but that's kind of the progress right there. So, and then sometimes you have to dip it in the Comet to get a little bit more as you're going along. So now I'll just rub this one off. Sometimes these logos can be a little tricky. What also makes this process tricky is dealing with the little crevice, or the ribs, because sometimes stuff will not come off because you just cannot get your Q-tip in those ribs. So you just kind of have to try to jam it in there. And if you absolutely cannot get it off, what I do is, with this, like a car like this, I'll just try to match the paint as close as I can. Just put a little dab of paint on it. That's pretty close. Even if it's off a little bit, just a small amount will look fine. And chances are the decal is going to cover it anyways. All right, now let's take a look at this. See what we got. All right, much better. Look at that. So now we've basically got, this is where our new SPSF reporting marks will go. And you can tell we got a little bit, so I might put a little bit of paint there, but pretty good. So we're basically, now we're at a data only car with, the nice thing is with the road number. And so you don't have to do all the road numbers. And so that's what I really like about using the BNSF cars, is that you've got all your road numbers set out for you. You don't have to worry about cutting little tiny numbers. And so the decals that I have, and if you go to the Highball Graphics freelance decals, you'll see that they're ready to go, and you just have the SPSF there, and then I've got little SPSFs for the ends, and then I've got the larger SPSF logos. Now after this, to kind of speed up the drying, I'll usually kind of blot it with a towel a little bit like that. So just like that. But I'll usually let it air dry, I don't know, maybe an hour or so, and you're done. Okay, so that's basically how to do it. I won't bore you with doing the rest of the cars. I'm going to come back and do these later. But that's basically how to rebadge a car. So for the SPSF. So anybody have any questions about that right now? Doesn't look like it. Let's see. Jeff Schultz doesn't like the McKean center beams. Well, I like them, so I'll show you why. All right, so let's go do that next. And we'll take a little tour of the layout while we're doing it. So I've got a op session coming up tomorrow. I got 4 new operators coming over to run the layout, so I got things set up for that. pretty much. I just have to finish restaging some cars. Usually between op sessions, I don't have to restage cars, but I went through and made a lot of changes this time around. As I've mentioned, I made some industry changes and whatnot. So, so this time around, I do have to restage some cars. So it's gonna take a little bit longer to prepare for this one. But then after that, I should be back in the process where I'm, you know, just ready to go. And with JMRI, you just build a new work order and you're ready to go. So, okay, so here we are at Papillion. Here's the little track diagram. And one thing that I've noticed, I'll just give you a demonstration here. Okay, so this is the Payless Cashways Lumberyard. So one thing I've noticed with this, after I finished my McKean centerbeam cars, I have a lot of my industrial areas have 18-inch radius curves or number 4 turnouts, and because I like how you can get a lot in a little bit of space with that. But one thing that I noticed was that the McKean centerbeams would not take the 18-inch curves. So, but what was weird is that Walther's car, like this one right here, would. So see how this Walther's car tracks nicely through the plant. Just comes in, no problem at all. But then we got the centerbeam car. It comes in and, ooh, that doesn't sound good. It got really tight there, right there too. So it didn't derail that time, but you could just tell like the wheels were getting really tight, and there it derailed. Okay, so now I'll show you with this McKean centerbeam car. This is one that I fixed already. See, no issues at all there. So what was the problem? Well, the thing I noticed on these cars is that the radius for the trucks is limited by a couple things. It's limited by, you got this little frame bar there, and then you've got this frame here right on either side of the truck. So that's a problem. So what I did to this car is I cut all that out. Let's see, there you can see it. So notice all that's gone, all that's gone. So the trucks swing much nicer. Now the underframe isn't, or the side sill I should say, isn't impacted at all. So you look at it, you know, like that, it looks just fine. Obviously if you're a huge rivet counter, the bottom looks completely wrong, but you know, with the weight and everything, it's already off anyway. So I'm not as concerned about that. I just want it to operate well. So I'll just show you real quick how you go about fixing that. So we'll start with this car. See, can you see it? Okay. So obviously you start by taking the trucks off. And this is really easy to do. Might even be easier than rebadging those freight cars. Let's see. And like I mentioned before, the reason I like these McKean centerbeams so much is I like the shorter cars. They're really cool. I still see them used a lot in town with the locals that I usually go out and rail fan. We got one truck off there, and they just look neat. And it's good to have some variety, not have everything 72 foot. And I know Exactrail makes these short cars, but there's a couple problems with the Exactrail car. One is that they don't make the modern, the newer open style like this is, and they also don't make the TTX style like that. So so some limits there. It would be nice if somebody made a newer car. The other thing is these kits I kind of like building. They're not too hard, I don't think. They definitely have a lot of detail parts, but I like the detail that comes with them. Okay, so a couple things we're going to do. We're just going to snip all this stuff off. And I always like to have a prototype guide to see what I did before. Okay, so we're just going to clip all that stuff out. And I'm just using some basic, these are ones that I usually use for rail cutting, but these are good for this as well. You want to be a little careful as you do this, obviously, so that you're not getting into the other parts of the car that you don't want to cut off. And sometimes you might have to glue this frame back on. You just want to cut it very carefully, like that. Cut that one carefully there. See, like I said, that kind of came off. We'll go back and glue it back on, no problem. Okay, so that's gone. And as I noticed with the test car that I did, this doesn't impair the structural integrity at all. You still have a car that runs just fine, which obviously is the important part here. All right, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. So yeah, as you can see, very easy to do. I didn't even have to take this on my workbench. I'm just doing it on the layout. So that's what it looks like now, all cleaned up. So here we got to clean all that stuff up. So we'll just do this one real quick. And so obviously the hardest one is this thick one right here. You have to be very careful that you don't break it. I mean break the side frame, because that's obviously the important part, because you're going to be looking at that. Okay. What I like about using these clippers is that it keeps the, you always have a flat side, so then I can cut the flat side against this stuff here. That seems to work pretty well. I've got some other clippers that I use for like sprues and brass stuff and whatnot, but I think this works pretty good for this. Okay, there we go. So that's all there is to it. Now we'll put our trucks back on, and we should see some marked improvement. One thing I was going to mention, talking about op sessions, and I was telling you that the op session, the next one is tomorrow. One of my, I guess, top advice things is that if you're having an op session, I highly recommend that you get everything done for the session the day before, instead of rushing to fix things the day of. So like getting cars like this done, you know, I hate rushing to finish up cars the day before, and the Rebadge cars I'm not using in the op session because I don't have them on my JMRI roster yet. So usually I don't do stuff like that, but if you ever have to do anything like this, I think it's good to do it the day before, and then that way the day of the session you can spend time, you know, making sure everything's ready to go and looks nice, and any last minute cleanups. But definitely you don't want to be working on freight cars. Alright, so let's put this down and see how it goes. And the other nice thing about these McKean center beam cars is the loads that are made by Jaeger models are really nice with these. Okay, not quite sure what that was all about. Let's see. Let's go and find there for a second. Okay, that's better. So yeah, see, a lot more fluid around there. You know what I think the problem is? I need to glue this back on. That was running into the truck, the side frame. Okay, let's try this again. So yeah, obviously you need to glue that back on so it stays, but what is your problem? One more time. Okay, that's how it should work. So obviously quite a bit better than it was last time. Why is it still doing that? I wonder if it's wobbling a little too much in there. Okay, that's better. One of the hard parts about testing it with your hands is it's not like with a real locomotive. So putting pressure on the top, which isn't always a good idea. But anyways, there you can see it goes through that curve just fine, just like the Walters car did. let's try pushing it with the Walters car. It's still derailing back there. I don't know why. Anyways, I'll get that fixed. But that's basically how you do it. And then, so I've got a few more to do, and I'll do the same thing. And it's basically just giving the trucks the flexibility that they need to run on the track. And then you don't have any operation problems. The other idea that I had thought of before this project was, you know, should I relay all this track and make it better? And then I thought, well, no, because I want it to work everywhere on the way out. And so this way, this little trick will make it work everywhere. So hope that's helpful to anybody who saw that. All right, now we'll go in and see if we have any more questions. Let's see. John Parker doesn't like them either. Well, I don't know. If you don't like these cars, then what other alternatives are there to little 60-foot center beam flat cars? Let's see. Matt wants to know if I'm using the McKean trucks, or if you upgraded to something like Exactro 100-ton roller bearing trucks, or the Walters trucks intermountain wheels. Okay, so I just used the McKean trucks. I thought they're okay. That could be an issue with this car that I was having some problems with. The trucks that I like to replace cars with when I don't like the trucks that come with them, the factory trucks, is I really like the AccuRail trucks. They're pretty simple, and they fit the Intermountain wheel sets, which is what I used in here. These are 36-inch Intermountain wheel sets. So that's usually what I use. But these right now, I usually try to give the factory trucks a chance if I think they'll work right. But if they don't, then I'll swap them out. I do that a lot on a lot of other cars. Let's see. And then what else do we have? Josh Cohen says, even though I have a small layout, give me a week to prepare for a session. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, you know, the last op session I had was in July, so I guess you could say I've been preparing it since then. But I've done some other things that I don't usually do in between op sessions, like entirely replace the DCC system. So, but yeah, I definitely start out ahead. Like some of the things that I've been doing, you know, before this include, you know, working this stuff out with JMRI. I've already got the work orders printed and stuff like that. So yeah, you definitely want to take some time. You definitely don't want to be in a rush the day of the session. That's the main thing. Let's see. Justin Caesar says, looking forward to seeing your railroad in a few months. Cool. Thanks, Justin. Hopefully you're coming to Rocky Op then. And while I'm talking about that, I might as well put out a plug there. The Rocky Op sessions here in the Denver area and up north as far as like Longmont, we'll have a lot of layouts, and we'll be doing a operating session the weekend of, I think it's the first weekend of May. Not 100% sure. It's still a ways away. So yeah, if you go to rockyop.org, you should be able to find out more information about that. And so my layout's one of the ones that'll be featured in that. So one of the reasons that I'm trying to get a few op sessions done to go through problems like this and make sure that things are working well. So, all right, Justin says, yes, I am. Great. Well, I will see you there, Justin. All right, I think that's all the questions we got. So I think I'll go ahead and conclude this. And I will just say that, let's see, here, I'll just talk to you here. So yeah, I think I'll just wrap up the video, and I'll just mention that I'll finish up the other cars probably today, and when they're done, I'll send you some photos so you can see what they look like. But like I mentioned, rebadging cars for SPSF is very easy if you start out with a BNSF car and use decals like the ones that Eyeball Graphics makes on its freelance page. So anybody can do it, and that's just what I wanted to show you on this video, is how simple it is to do something like this. It might look like a huge involved project, but really it isn't. All you need is, you know, the model, the Q-tips, the Comet cleaner, water, a nice little sink, and then you're good to go. And then the other stuff that you usually use with decals. So I hope you give it a shot, and if anybody does try this, I definitely like to see what your models look like. So thanks for joining the video today, and I'll check one last time for comments. Any more questions? Thanks, John. Glad you liked the video. And then Josh says he's been down almost all year because I'm putting in signaling and tortoise switch machines. Oh yeah, I can believe that. I only have one tortoise switch machine, and it took a long time. So, All right, cool. Well, thanks everyone again for joining, and hope to see you all in the next live SPSF video. I think I'll do another, it seems like more people can join on weeknights, so I'll probably do another weeknight live video sometime and just do a layout tour and ask general questions and stuff. But just wanted to show you these couple projects today. So thanks everyone. See you later.